Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 3 weeks value added course on Introduction to Version Control. Myself, Professor Shibu Raj, I will be taking this 3 weeks course on every Thursday, and I will be explaining you the use cases and the basic fundamentals of using the version control. And we will begin with the installation of the Git software, and at the end, towards the end, I will be explaining you how to use GitHub for collaborative development. So let us begin. There is no computer engineer who you know who cannot become a computer engineer without learning version control. Okay, at some point of time you have to learn version control, and in fact, if you go to any company which is related to software development or mobile app development or anything like that, any development related stuff, then Git is mandatory. May not be exactly Git, maybe some other version control, but Git is the famous version control right now. So without Git, there is no, for a programmer, there is no way out without Git, right? But there are fields other than programming. So if you are interested in those fields, then then you may not need to know this. But if you want to become a programmer, then definitely you have to uh, you have to learn Git, right? Now, it is not mandatory that you should know Git only, but you should know a version control system. Okay. Now, in this particular course, which will be actually of 3 weeks. Okay. So 2 hours in per week. So what we are going to see is how you can also use Git in your coding world. Okay, so basically anything you do, any code you write, always keep it in a repository or basically a version control. Okay, now what that will help, that is what we are going to learn in this particular course. Okay, so let us begin in our course, valuated course on introduction to version control. First thing that comes into our mind is what is basically version control. Okay, so as per the definition in Wikipedia, what version control means is it's a category of software tools that help a software team to manage their source code. Okay, now basically I will share my story also of this, why I started using version control. And at one point of time, every one of you who start writing code will feel the need of version control in their programming environment. Okay, so let's see why version control. But before that, let's see what are the various version controls that are available. Okay, so as you all know, Git is at the top. We all know about Git mainly because of the GitHub website, right? So GitHub is basically hosting the Git repositories for us, right? There is not only that is not the only website which allows us to create. There are many different, there is GitLabs, there is Bitbucket. So there are lots of such websites which provides us this facility, but GitHub is the most famous. Okay, then there is other version systems like Mercurial, SVN, Bazaar, CVS, and many more, right? So let's see why Git. Okay, now again, what what is Git basically? Git is a distributed version control system for tracking changes in source code during software development, right? So now here, the main important point that I've highlighted is distributed. Okay, now what is distributed, right? So that you will understand in the next slide. Okay, so this is basically my story of why I switched to Git. Okay, so basically around 10 years back, I started programming, and that time I realized that whenever I did some major changes, what I used to do is I just copied the entire folder, created a zip file, and saved it, and added a timestamp. Okay, that I have done these changes on this date. Okay, so that is what I used to do. Every time there is some change, I used to create another zip file, then store it with the date. Okay, so at the end of the development, you can imagine how many such zip files will be there. Okay, so there will be around 60 to 70 zip files, and it is unnecessary taking a lot of space, right? So at that time I thought this is not the good way to do it, because let's suppose now you may ask, why am I doing it, right? Why do I want to take a zip of all my code, right? Obviously, whenever you keep developing, there are chances that you can do some mistake, and you don't realize it till there is a severe error, right? So once that error happens, then you realize, okay, now I have to go back. Right now, to go back, what you will do is, I've already told I have taken a a zip of all the uh, source code, right? So I will go to the latest zip and extract it and replace everything, right? So that way I get the code back, right? Okay, please everybody just mute your mics. Okay. Okay, so that was a completely tedious job to, every time if there is some error, I have to unzip the previous zip file, find out the code and replace it. Okay, so that is completely unpractical. Okay, so that time, if you just come back to this slide, you can see SVN, subversion system, right? So that is what I used at the beginning, right? And I don't know how many of you must have heard of it. Google Code, there was a website called Google Code, obviously hosted by Google. They used to provide this SVN subversion system, right? And I used to host all my codes over there. Okay, so it was pretty straightforward and very easy and helpful tool. I used to use something called as Tortoise to do the version control. Now, the problem here was that when you create an SVN system, it is not distributed. Okay. Now, what do you mean by distributed or non-distributed, right? So basically what happens is, when you create an SVN system, the server will hold all the code. Okay, and your computer will hold only the changes of the code. Okay, so if you today do some changes, only that changes is stored in your server. Okay, sorry, in your local machine, and everything is there on the server. Now the problem here is that, let's suppose your server is dead. Okay, or the server is closed, or it is not functioning, or they have made the system paid, something like that. So what happens is, now you do not have any copy of your code, because what you have on your system is only a small part of your code, not the entire part. Okay, it is only the changes that are there. So that was the major disadvantage of SVN. Okay, so that's when Git came into picture. Okay, and Git was invented by the same person who invented Linux. Okay, so you can just Google it, Google the person, and just read a little bit of history. I'm not going into that detail about the history, right? So that is when I realized that, okay, so Git is better, because what happens in Git is, the main important point is distributed. Okay, so what happens is, whatever you do, all the entire project of yours will be there in your local computer. The exact replica will be there on the server, and the exact replica will be there on your friend's computer also, whoever is working together, right? So now, even if everybody goes away, the server is gone, your friend is gone, but still you will have the entire project to yourself, right? So that is the best part of using Git. Okay, so let's see what all things we are going to cover in this. I have kept the introduction part very short so that we can concentrate more on Git rather than the introduction, right? So these are the things that we are going to cover. First, we are going to see how to install and create your first repo. Now, what is a repo? Repo is nothing but your source code. Okay, so it is like a folder which is under Git. Okay, so any folder which is under Git, we will call it as a repo. Okay, repository. Then we will see staging and committing. Okay, is there any questions? We won't, so that, so won't that need the same amount of memory as it is as it's saved in our local machine? I didn't get you, Artem.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
So I was asking that in the distribution system, you said a copy of a program is also saved in our local machine.
Yes.
So that if it's even if the server closes down, we have the copy to ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
So won't that cost the exact amount of memory that would have cost if we didn't share it on the server?
Yes. Yes. It that is what we want. Basically, if we do not do that, then if the server crashes, the original server crashes, then we don't have the code left with us, right? So that's why what we do is we will take that much pain to get extra storage, so that at least all the code that we have, that is stored on our computer as well, right? So that we don't lose anything. So that point is, that can be taken as a disadvantage, but as a advantage also. Okay, now if you have less memory, then this is a disadvantage.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
thank you.
but nowadays if you just consider the size of your hard disk, now I don't think anybody is having less than 1 TB, right? Maybe at least 500 GB hard
The
disk everybody.
the SSD users have less memory.
SSD users, I don't think they will be storing your Git repos in the SSD. It is mainly for OS related stuff. Okay, so
Yes.
Git, you can store it anywhere. It is not that you have to store it in the operating system only. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So next we are going to check the staging and committing. Then we are going to see how branching is done. And then when as soon as we say what is branching, all these things we will cover in detail, but I'm just letting you know what are the topics. Then we are going to see merging, resolving conflicts. Then this is very important, reset and revert. So whenever we do some changes or code commits, then if there are any errors, we can always go back to the previous state without worrying too much. Okay, then there is something called as stashing that we will see. Then from the last four is basically an introduction to how to use GitHub. Okay, so we will see how to create your repos on GitHub and how to manage your source code over there. Okay, so till now, are there any queries before I move to the actual course? Is everybody clear till here? Okay, so now before I
अरे यार मत ले यार, ये तकिया इधर रहने के लिए है ही नहीं, मैं आके लेटने लग जाऊंगा, टेंशन मत लो.
Just mute yourself. Who is that? Talha, Kazi. Okay, so before I go ahead, before I start with the course, with the demo actually, I would like to see that there are around 71 participants over here, but in the Moodle there is only, I think, 40 something, right? So I request everybody to subscribe to the course, because this is going to be a certificate course. So if you complete the course with all the assignments, then you will be provided with the certificate. Okay, so let's begin. I will just come out of this and let's check the first part, that is how to install Git on your system. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this particular website. The website is gitscm.com. Okay, so I will just paste this on the chat box. Okay, so here you can see download sections. Okay, you can click over there. Now depending on your OS, this page will change. Okay, if you're on Mac, it will be a different DMG file you will get. For Linux, DEB file you will get, right? So for Windows, you will get an exe file to set up, right? So after clicking, you will be able to download the file, and you can see this is how it is getting downloaded. Okay, and the size of the file is around 4850 MB. Okay, so then afterwards you just have to double click, give the permission, and then it is very simple. You don't have to do anything, just click install, and it will ask you for certain options. Okay, because I am reinstalling it, that's why it did not ask for any options, but it will, whatever options it asks, whatever is the default, you just click next. Okay, so you don't have to change anything. You just click keep next and your Git will be installed. Okay, so once this particular step is over, okay, so now my Git is installed, right? So now how to check if the Git is installed or not? Okay, so just open your terminal. Okay, and just type Git, and if you get something like this, then that means Git is installed. Okay, and if you get something like this, let's say is the screen visible? Should I just increase? Okay, so if I put the command, let's say I put something wrong. Okay, and if I press enter, you can see what is this error that you get. Okay, so this is exactly what you will get if Git is not installed on your system. Okay, I just put a wrong command just to show you how the error will be there. Okay, but if you put the right command, you can see this is how it will show you, right? So this is how your Git will look. The second way you can do it is you can just right click anywhere, and you can see there are two new options added, that is Git GUI and Git Bash. Okay, so we will be using Git Bash most of the times. Okay, so let's see now, is there any doubts on how I have installed Git? Any doubts till now? Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's create our first repository. Okay, now as I already told you, repository is nothing but your code. Okay, so where your code, the entire folder where your code is going to reside. Okay, so let's you can create your repository, sir, in path. Yes, Saqib, do we have to select? No, no, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to change anything unless you purposely want to change the path to somewhere else. That is your choice. Okay, but unless and until you have decided something else, then you don't need to change anything. Okay, any other doubts? Okay, so let's begin. You can create a repo anywhere. Okay, like for example, in my case, I will just show you. I have created a repo. All my repos are over here. Okay, so you can see all my repos. So it is basically just a folder, right? And inside that folder there will be a Git repository, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder over here. Let's call it my repo. Okay, you can give it any name you want. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a right click and I'm going to do git bash here. Okay. So this is one way of doing it. Or if you don't want to use git bash, then you can use your command prompt. Okay. So from the taskbar, I had command prompt over here, or if you do not have it over there, then you can just type command prompt, and you can click on that. Okay. So once you have that, there also the same command will work, that is going to work over here. Okay. Only advantage of git bash is if somebody is from the Linux environment, then this will be much more helpful to them. Okay. So let me just increase the font size. Is it visible now? Okay. So the first step now, the first thing that you can see is you are on the desktop and inside the folder my repo. Okay. Now this is very important. If you're not inside the repo on which you want to do it, then it will be very difficult, right? So let's say, for example, you are on the desktop right now. If I do an ls means to list all the files and directories that are there. Okay. So this ls command will not work on Windows, but in git bash it will work. That's why I'm using git bash. If you're running on Windows, you can use dir. Okay. So you can see there are certain software that are there. AnyDesk is there. Then there are some files. Okay. Then you can see my repo over here, right? So I want to get inside this repo. So I can do cd, my repo. So cd will change the directory to that repo. Okay. So this is one way of doing it. Okay. So I will just close again, and I will show you the first method. That is what I normally use. I will just right click the repo and do git bash. Okay. So that will open my uh, terminal bash, and it will uh, get inside my repo also. Okay. Now the first command that we will do is git status. Okay. Now this is not the first command that you will usually do, but I just want to show you what happens when you do git status. Okay. Now git status is the command which you will use to find the status of your repo. Okay. So if you want to find out are there any changes on your source code, then git status is what you do. Okay. But when I run git status over here, what it does, it say it's not a git repository. That means right now this folder, my repo, is just a folder. It is not a git repo. Okay. So my first step always is to create a git repo. Now to start to make a git repo, the command is very simple: git init. Okay. So the command is git init, press enter, and you can see initialized empty git repository, right? So let's check if anything has changed. You can see there is now there is a folder called .git. Okay. Now if you do it in your computer, you may not be able to see this. The reason is it is hidden. Okay. You can see it is lightly colored. That means it is hidden. Now to show to view this file, you just have to go to view, options, change folder and search options, go to view, and here you can see I have removed I have selected show hidden files and folders. Okay. So this has to be, now normally on your operating system it will be don't show. Okay. But if you do this, then you can see git repo. Okay. But actually you don't have to touch this file at all. Okay. So that's why it is hidden. You don't have to touch it at all, right? So just let's forget about that folder right now, and never open this unless you know what you're doing. Okay. So now let's begin with the next command. We have done git init, right? So git init should be done only once. Okay. When you first create the repo, you should use git init. Okay. Then let us try to do git status. Now it says on branch master, no commits yet. Okay, nothing to commit. That means the first line says it is on branch master. Okay, now what are branches, that we will see in a little bit later. But basically there are multiple ways in which you can work on this, and by default you will be always on the master branch. Okay, so you are on the master branch. Now let's start adding some contents to this particular repo. Okay, so now what I usually prefer is to open this folder inside my editor. Okay, so you can use any editor of your choice, but I'm using this. Okay, I'm using Visual Studio Code. If you don't have this, you can use Notepad also. We are not actually using Visual Studio Code. I just want to create some files. That's why I'm doing this. Okay, so you can use anything. Notepad is also fine. Okay, now the first thing, this is my repo. You can see there is nothing, and Visual Studio Code is not showing the hidden folder .git folder. Okay, so right now it says there is nothing in this file. Okay, let's create a new file. Let's call it, let's say, index.html. Okay, so I've created a file, and let's call inside that, let me say hello. I've just I have just written a single word, that is hello. And I've saved it. Okay, now let's see what does git status tells us. Okay, if I do git status now, you can see what it is saying. On branch master. Okay, then there is no commits yet. Matlab, I have not done any commits till now. Okay, and it is saying, okay, we have 10 minutes left. We will connect again in 5 minutes. Okay, so it is saying that there is an untracked file. Okay, untracked file means the Git will only track those files which you tell Git to track. Okay, it will not track any other file. Okay, so right now it is saying that there is one file in your system, in your folder, which is untracked. That means Git is not trying to track it. Okay, so what does the tracking mean? Tracking means any source code changes, it will store in the Git repo. Okay, so right now it is not storing anything, right? Because it is in the untracked. So that's why we have to stage this. Okay, now to stage this, there is this command, that is git add and the name of the file. Okay, so basically you are adding that file to the Git repo. Okay, right now, even though you have put it inside this folder, it is not inside Git repo. Okay, so unless you add it, then it will get inside the repo. Okay, basically it will start getting tracked. Okay, so let's put the name index.html. Okay, and press enter. Okay, so now it is added to the tracking. Now let's do the status again. Now you can see it is saying changes to be committed. That means it is tracking this file index.html, and according to Git, it is a new file. Okay, Git has not yet seen this file. That's why it is calling new file. Okay, so now our job is, once we did the add part, now our job is, once you are done, that means you are ready, that my code till here my code is okay. Now your job is to tell Git that save my state. Okay, so basically till now your state is not saved. Okay, if you do not save your state, then you cannot go back. Okay, so now your job is to save your state. Now to save your state, you do something called as git commit. Okay, so basically I have shown you 4 commands till now. Git init, that is to initialize your Git repo. Git status, you will be using always, that is to check the status of your repo. Then git add, to add the files to the staging area. And finally git commit, to commit your status. Okay, so for committing, you have to add a message as to what have you done. Okay, so let's say this is my you can put any message. It should be meaningful message. Okay, so first commit. Okay, so let me call it first commit. Okay, so basically this syntax of the command is the name of the command, that is commit, then -m, that is the flag, that is for message. Okay, so -m tells you that the next thing that is coming is the message. Okay, so now the message is first commit, and now if I press enter, you can see the commit is done. Okay, and now if I try to do the status, what it says is on branch master, nothing to commit, working tree is clean. Okay, this is what I want always. Okay, so basically whenever you start using Git from now on, and whenever you want to stop your work for the time being, let's say you want to go and have your food, or you want to uh, uh, play something, or you want to watch some movies, so before that always see to it that you run git status. Okay, Rihan, yes, what is your query?
So the -m in the commit command is for master branch, or is it for the message identification?
Message. -m is for
It's
message.
for message.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is
Okay.
not for the master branch. Okay, is it clear? Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
okay, so let's go ahead. Now you can see I am my tree, that means my repo is currently clean. That means there is nothing to commit, right? So now I can do, we will see the fifth command, that is git log. Okay, now this is very important command to see all the commits that you have done. Okay, so if I press git log and enter, you can see that uh, uh, there is this commit done by whom? This particular user. Okay, now this particular step is remaining, that I will show you in a while. You may be thinking that from where this particular email, my email and my name, how did it come, right? So that we will see. But before that, you can see the commit hash. Okay, so this is basically uh, it's like a number which will tell you unique, which will uniquely identify your commit. Okay, so this is very important. You don't have to memorize it or anything. You can always do git log and copy this commit if we want. Okay, and the important thing to note is the message that you have typed. Okay, so this message should be very meaningful. Okay, it should not be like first commit. Okay, I've just put this message in such just for a demo, but it should be like let's say I have added a new feature. Okay, so I would write the name of the feature and what all changes I have done in the code. So that is how your commit message should be, right? The reason is so that you can understand what is, because from looking at the code you will obviously you can understand, but for that you will have to go back. Okay, so without going back, if you want to find out what have you done in that particular commit, then you should describe your commit in that way. Okay, now there is another hand that is raised. Who was that? Did you had any doubts? I don't have the, okay. Sir, then it will only save changes in source code. Khan Samir, I didn't understand your query. Can you explain? Okay. Okay, so what we will do is I will, yes, Khaja Sheikh. Yes, Khan Samir, yes, exactly. It is very important to understand that Git does not make a copy of the entire code. Okay, it only saves the changes in the code. Okay, so basically, let's say in the future I add another line. Okay, so only that line is saved. That's why Git will not use too much space in your computer. Okay, it is only saving the changes and not the entire code. Okay, so that's why it is very famous. Okay, any other queries? Okay, so what I will do is I will stop the share now and you can connect again within a minute. Okay.